And so now I'm going to introduce you to Lee. It is so exciting that you're here. So welcome.
Thank you very much, Sigrid. Thank you very much indeed. It's a pleasure to be here, and my dad speaks so highly of this place, and yeah, so nicely to speak to you all.
Yeah, it's really exciting. I love it's interesting because obviously I've been talking about you a lot already, and now I have you here. So I would love for you to share a little bit more about who you are and what it is you do on this planet. Can you start?
Yeah, certainly. So I'm what's known as a cognitive hypnotherapist, and it's quite an amazing way of working actually. What I tend to find is the old kind of school of thought of hypnotherapy very much focused on getting someone to go really deep, and if they go deep it's just a success. And unfortunately a lot of people, I don't know what the statistic is, but I think it's probably around 80% or so, are not somnambulists that go really, really deep. So can we create change in a lighter or medium state of trance? Yeah, absolutely. And that's what I'm seeing a lot of results in, where we don't need to necessarily focus on the deepness and getting someone really, really deep to create change. So that's very much the kind of school of thought with cognitive hypnotherapy. But, I also work with the traditional way as well. But that's kind of, yeah, it's more of a little, I kind of think it's more of like a kind of progressive way of doing things.
I like that. And you also shared about, because obviously we had a pre-chat, and so you also shared about like combining spirituality with this, but just diving into this because I really like this. So what if I want to change something? Because we are in the physical and we have these physical habits, these physical emotions, all of that, right? It's very physical.
Yeah.
So what would be your quickest way to kind of release, for example, stuck emotions or certain energy patterns about thoughts and that kind of stuff? What if you do
Yeah.
that in your daily life?
This is a great question. Something I think about every day, because before I become a hypnotherapist, I was kind of on the path more on a kind of spiritual level. I was kind of opening up more and looking at new ways of being and creating changes within my life. And I think raising the kind of your own vibration, the things that are not serving you anymore just naturally become obsolete. They naturally no longer kind of fit within your life. And, I've got lots of different examples of that, things that just kind of floated away from me. And I thought, well, did I do anything to kind of give that up or walk away from that situation? And I think it's a natural kind of resonance that you attain through developing like a spiritual practice or like a mood of living. It's more about cultivating a mood of living. And obviously, the answer to that from a kind of hypnotherapy point of view is absolutely, the mind is formed due to one's reality tunnel of how they see the world. So that's formed on past experiences. That can be formed in good ways and not so good ways. And what we can do is we can go in and we can move things around so we can create a new reality tunnel around lots of different things, and you'll find that a lot of the time the same method of changing it can be done for all different things. People say, oh, well, I want help with losing weight and stopping smoking. Whereas maybe we'll look, what we actually do in terms of the process might be very similar to create a new reality tunnel. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does actually.
Yeah.
And so for having what I love is the concept of you're actually just not paying any attention to the things you don't like. You're focusing more on what you do like. But how, like you're adding into that reality, you're adding into the frequency. But what would be a daily ritual to kind of create that elevated space of awareness or frequency?
It's a great question. Okay, cool. Again, something else I always think about on a daily basis. It's fascinating because, for me, like, you know, stopping, for instance, something like chocolate. I love chocolate. It's been one of the last things for me to kind of try and give up, but I still love it. It's my thing. But something like, there's other things, like maybe alcohol or something, I was able to give that up easier. That wasn't so much of a bad thing. Some of my friends said to me, "Oh, how did you stop? Kind of so easy." And I remember a monk once said to me, they said, "Well, look, if you've got the analogy of like, say, a cup, and you want to pour out all that water and put purer water inside, you wouldn't just pour the cup up. out and just expect to be fulfilled with an empty cup. You need to pour new content inside of the cup to be fulfilled by new things. And I think that when I was growing up, I was always kind of, I loved pleasure. That was very different to happiness for me. And I love like movies and going out with my friends and entertainment. And yeah, I think really I was just a pleasure seeker like many of us, right? But I think the way kind of society's engineered, I was kind of looking a lot of the time in the wrong room. Short-lived pleasures, like I used to love go-karting and stuff like that. Great, I still do it now, but I do it with a different perspective because the content in the new cup that I've created is answering your question, spiritual fulfillment, like nourishment within. And for me, that's like sadhana. I don't know if you're aware with the Sanskrit word sadhana, like your daily spiritual practice. And that can be many different things. I know guys that have got, guys and girls that have got really amazing sadhanas going where they're kind of deeply anchored into a real sense of strength and composure in their life and very connected spiritually. And for me, I love chanting mantras, Vedic mantras, Hare Krishna, lots of different mantras that I chant. And for me, it's like, wow, that's an entry where I can have had the most difficult day going and I can come back, I can walk through the door. I've still got the challenges externally going on, but I can literally enter a new frequency and a new place of like, and that tends to come for me after chanting for like maybe, I don't know, 10, 15 minutes. So it's something I realize you got to put the work into it. It's something you've got to kind of show commitment. And sadhana is the concept of doing something daily, creating that repetition. Does that make sense? Yeah.
Yeah, I believe firmly in that, right? It's not doing it like one day you're doing it and then you're not doing it. Like I did massive changes recently in the gym. It was because I did my
All
eating
right.
well every day, and
Oh,
I went
nice.
to the gym twice. It was not a coincidence, right? And so I think it's about spiritual practice too. And so choose something which is truly elevating. And I think, I don't know what you think about that, is when you start doing something which is repetitive, yet it's not effective. Many people say, like, I meditate every day, but it's not actually elevating. What you say is pick something what changes your state.
Go
That's
in.
the key, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I met a gentleman recently, and he used to go swimming in a lake every day and do his breathing before, so he'd get really centered, and he would do his diaphragmatic breathing. I'm not sure what type, and he would go in and he'd go swimming in his lake, and that would be how he'd start his morning every day. All through the winter as well. And it was like, wow, what an amazing sadhana that is. That's a commitment. And I think at the beginning I was a bit of a spiritual hobbyist when I was younger because I'd maybe go to some events and do some yoga or some kirtan or something like that. And I'd come out feeling amazing. I'd be like, wow, this is great. And then, I'd forget about it for a week or so. And then I'd kind of pick it back up. And I still have tendencies to do that now. So I have to make sure that I keep myself plugged in. I have to remember the importance of the fact that I can change in some ways how my day is going to be. Not necessarily the circumstances, sometimes maybe a little bit, but overall more the way I see the world can be different when I walk out that door in the morning based on my sadhana, based on how I chant, how often I chant, how my intention behind the chanting as well, and kind of cultivating that sort of mood of prayer and that kind of oneness. I can go out there and wow, this still can be the battlefield out there at times. But I think once you've done your preparation and your daily practice, you can have the armor on you. So there's still the battlefield out there, but there's the armor there. So we're not going to be as badly affected by if something difficult or challenges arise.